welcome or welcome back to Tarot AF. So today we've got another pick a card reading for you guys on exploring a few of your past lives. So today what we're going to look at, we're going to look at who you were, what you did, and the challenges you may have faced, and ultimately how you died, what lessons you learned by the time of your death, and now ultimately how you've been influenced by this past life. So how you got to this iteration of you and any lessons that maybe you might have forgotten recently, which is why, you know, this video called to you at this time. So kind of to refresh that. But just a disclaimer at the top, and I'll also pop one in the box as well for anyone that might have skipped ahead. But there might be some quite heavy content here, especially with around how you died and the challenges that you may have faced in one or some of your past lives. So please use your discretion when watching this video. You don't have to watch it if you don't feel comfortable, and maybe it's not the right time for you to receive this message at this moment. So you can always come back to it if you do feel really drawn to it, but you find it quite tough watching at the time being. So if you've never been to a pick a card reading before, hello, welcome. Today we've got 8 piles in front of us today. So you can take your moment, you can pause the video, you can see which pile or piles are drawing your eyes. Because we're looking at energy here, you may be drawn to various energies, so different lives. I'm not really going to put like dates on each pile. I'm much more looking at the energy of who you are and what you did, but there might be some things that kind of pop up. But like I said, you can take your pick, you can watch multiple piles, that is up to you. And what I do is I post the times in the box below and you can meet me there for your reading. I'll see you then. Bye. Hi lovely friends. So if you picked the Caribbean blue calcite, then this one is going to be for you. So firstly, let's start with who you were in this past life. So we have got the Judge, and we've also got tabbered in, which is also known as the Three of Wands. So I feel like in this life you could, with the Judge card, I feel like you were probably someone who was an advocate for the wrong and really stood up for people. And the Tabard Inn was a place where pilgrims would go. It's cited in the Canterbury Tales, and I feel like you were probably like a traveller seeking a just world, like sticking up for the underdog. And I feel like you surrounded yourself, no matter where, like which class potentially you came from or anything like that, I felt like you surrounded yourself with people's people and you were cooperative with them, and you were willing to exchange ideas and create with other people. And sometimes I feel like that could almost maybe give you, I'm hearing imposter syndrome, like maybe because of the Judge, because you were so you were an advocate for kind of rights and that kind of thing for other people, maybe sometimes you felt that you were a bit of an imposter and you maybe didn't deserve all the things that you had, or maybe you were quite critical and judgmental of yourself. But ultimately there is this there's this kind of fire energy of passion and wanting to get your wills across. And I feel like you probably had early success, like you had early support, maybe a really kind of rounded cohort. I'm hearing traveling band as well, like maybe a bit like Robin Hood, as it were, like as in you just had a cohort that you gathered around with. And not that you were a thief or anything, you never know, you could have been, but I more think that you just had like a like-minded group of people around you. And it felt like, especially at the beginning of this past life, that you kind of had the whole world as your oyster, as it were. Like you were kind of ready to take it on and bolstered up, especially by the people around you very early on. And inherently, like that was who you were, was someone that wanted to exchange ideas and kind of, I feel like seek truth in the world with that Judge card. I see the idea of judgment as cutting to the heart of it. So let's see what you did in this life as well. So we have got the Turtle, and we have also got the Golden Hind, which again is the Two of Wands. So with the Turtle and also this Golden Hind, the Golden Hind was mastered by Sir Francis Drake. Sorry, I'm trying to get my words out. And they very much like travelled across the world during Elizabeth I's reign, and I feel like this is this kind of traveller, not necessarily you had to travel overseas and that kind of thing. The turtle would potentially suggest that kind of you know, maybe off to discover, but I feel like you were quite comfortable in your own skin, comfortable in what you were doing, and you wanted to go and explore new heights and chase new ideas and new things, and really look out onto that horizon and kind of conquer the world in that kind of dominion. And you weren't afraid to go. I feel like you, with the turtle, there's this ancient wisdom, and maybe people thought of you as quite an old soul who knew so many things. Maybe in your early life you saw a lot of things, or maybe it's because you exchanged so many ideas with different individuals, it felt like you were almost ahead of your time, and maybe ahead of the time in the values that you were preaching, like we were saying with the civil rights and that kind of thing. Maybe you kind of had this untapped knowledge, and you weren't afraid to speak your mind in that way, and maybe you were always on the search for new ideas, new horizons, and there might have been a feeling of being caught up in the with so much need to follow your wills and desires. You may have let your finances slip, or that kind of thing, or you may have been chasing that too much for some people. So it's kind of that duality of taking on the world and then thinking that the physical matters were the thing that you should be chasing too. I kind of see this this split between the need for comfort and spirituality. And with the challenges that you faced, we have comfort, and we also have the star. So that's kind of wrapped up quite nicely in what we were just saying, you know, the need to try and find comfort and maybe find roots. And maybe you never really felt like you fit into a societal box, as it were, and maybe you had a really hard time tapping in. And I could see for some people that maybe spirituality and maybe kind of organized religions and that kind of thing maybe were the things that you were fighting against potentially, especially because, I mean, I wasn't really going to put a time on it, but because of the Golden Hind and when people were potentially travelling overseas, especially in England here, that was when we had the Reformation, well, in Henry VIII's time, and obviously it was Protestant v Catholic. So there could be kind of undertones of almost in this kind of tabard in, like we were talking about the Three of Wands, and also that judge kind of advocating for certain things and almost breaking boundaries. Maybe you had a really hard time finding the comfort in challenging all of these institutions potentially, and because you were on the search for ideas and that kind of thing, and maybe sometimes you felt like your quest maybe for discovery of something bigger and almost unearthing all of this, maybe you lost kind of comfort in that, in almost the quest that you were bound to do. And maybe that's where the judge aspects in kind of in negative come into play, of that kind of self-criticism and really doubting yourself and doubting your path and your intention behind it. And I feel like with the star as well, this is called glass bead necklaces, and it was children in the streets would wear these kind of necklaces and have the intent behind of they were going to keep them safe. And so I feel like it's almost a placebo effect, as it were, but it's more the intention behind having trust and faith that something was going to help you. And in terms of tarot, that is the universe and also spirit. And so that's why I feel like your intent, maybe your search for comfort and the physical attributes, it was that juxtaposition within yourself that you could never, there was just an internal conflict all the time, is how I'm hearing it. And so let's see how you died. So we've got pain, and we've also got Crossbones Graveyard. So the Crossbones Graveyard, if you're from London, you may have seen it. It's in well, kind of behind Borough Market, or if you visited London, sorry, as well. But essentially they were unearthed, I can't remember when they were unearthed, but it's essentially right by the tube track, like the rail tracks near London Bridge, and it's this graveyard that they found of all of these sex workers and people who weren't given a proper burial, essentially. And there's loads and loads of graves there, which now they've discovered and are honouring, and there's ribbons all over. It's really beautiful, and notes to all of these people. But I feel like maybe you weren't given your rights of burial, especially for the time that you were in. I feel like maybe there was obviously a painful end to your life. So pain, I'm hearing for some people, especially because you were challenging quite a lot of people's views and that kind of thing, maybe you were almost sentenced to your death. But for others, maybe it was painful in terms of for your friends and family, or and maybe almost upon like reflection of it, in the fact that you didn't get the rights almost that you wanted potentially as well, especially if you were challenging so much, or like I said, there was this duality. Maybe you kind of reverted back to what people were talking about, or maybe you had followed a different kind of spirituality. And either way, there was this unrest and almost feeling of dying in poverty as well, because this is the Five of Coins, the Five of Pentacles. So I feel like every known security that you had lost, and maybe you didn't feel like there were any people around you in this past life. So I'm hearing a lonely death, like feeling like all the doors were closed. So even if it wasn't a painful death, as in you were sentenced, all that kind of thing, I feel like it was painful in the fact that for such especially at the beginning of your life, surrounded by so many people, this was a difficult way to end it, feeling like there was almost no one to mourn you there. So let's see what lessons you learned from this life. So we have the Mouse, and we also have the Hanged Man, Mother Redcap. So with the Mouse, I feel like maybe this is this kind of small-minded business, as it were, of doing little tasks and almost getting wrapped up in them, and I'm hearing feeling small and speaking small. So I feel like for such an expansive start to life, like wanting to dominate, as it were, I feel like the circumstances, the environment that you were subjected to in this life made you feel so small, and almost made you lose touch of the magic in the world. And with the Hanged Man, Mother Redcap, I feel like you were tested a lot. And you kind of surrendered to the fate of life, as it were. And Mother Redcap was she was a healer, and also kind of fortune teller, and her parents and I think quite a few people in the community were hung for witchcraft, I believe. And so but she still healed and kind of devoted her life to that. And when and one night the devil was seen walking into her house, and the next morning her and her cat were dead. So with Mother Redcap, there's almost this almost enlightenment to things that potentially people don't agree with at the time, and kind of still following what they feel called to do and fated to do, despite what other people are saying. So maybe with the Mouse, like, you in this life maybe learn how what not to get caught up in terms of the comforts and seeking all of the monetary things, and actually even and maybe by the end of your life you were like, actually the things that I stood for and most of the time believed that I was doing, even if I had a loss of faith and action towards that, I still take with me. There's this kind of resigning to the fate of, okay, what it was, and yes, I could have probably spoke louder, yes, I probably could have spoken my truth, but ultimately I did what I can in the circumstances that I was given, and the people around me, is what I'm hearing. So I feel like this life that you led was almost ahead of its time in terms of thoughts and values in that kind of way, and that's why it was so difficult to get through. And so let's see how you have ultimately been influenced. So we've got the Father, and we've also got Bedlam, which is the 8 of Swords. So I feel like for you, watching this video, I feel like you have carried with this Father, there's this duplicity here. There's this two sides of the Father. The Father is someone who creates order, stability, grounding, who can kind of lay down the law and can be the protector and the caregiver and all of these things, and again can foster kind of the expectations and boundaries for a child. But also the Father is it can be negative as well. It can be the abandoner, the illusionist, and potentially like too harsh, to all of those things. And it is that nature of almost no boundaries. And I feel like this, it's like constantly back and forth. And I feel like that's what you've learned from this life, and that's how you've been influenced, is that maybe you have to accept all of the shadow aspects of yourself, which maybe this past life didn't fully do. Like, accept that you are all of those things. You are strong, you are a protector, you set your boundaries, but on the other side you are still wild, you are still unable to tame certain emotions and how things pop up for you. And with this Bedlam card, I feel like there is still a thought entanglement there, and almost and not being able to cut through the thoughts that come up and almost whirl around you and feel like they bind you. And maybe that's constraints that you've had since childhood, and maybe that's been given to you by your parents or your schooling or your whatever societal structure, and I feel like that's what you are trying to break out of, almost break out of that cycle, and understand that you are both, and that's okay to have the shadow aspects and acknowledge that within you. And the thing with the 8 of Swords is once you're actually much freer than you realize that you are, and you can walk away from this situation and accept both parts. But yes, I feel like there in your past life, it's almost like that's the life you lived, and you almost played out that part, and now you've started at this point where you understand that is what you have got to accept about yourself. Like, you spent this whole life almost becoming the Father, as it were, and that was just a constant battle between kind of the spirituality and kind of shadow, as it were, and now that's what Spirit is also asking you to kind of break, like an ancestral pattern, as it were, a soul pattern. So my lovely pile 1, my glorious friends, I'm going to leave that reading there for you. I really hope it resonated with you in terms of maybe what lessons you're learning and where you are at the moment, and maybe that's hopefully giving you some clarity of maybe, why maybe you feel tangled up in this. Everyone has these aspects to them, these shadow aspects, and we can't all be this side of the Father, this archetype, all the time. We are all this too, and I hope and maybe you felt that this was your pile, and you could kind of feel like the stories that came up, and potentially the kind of patterns and what happened and the challenges that were faced in the past life kind of resonated in that way with you. I'm sending so much love to you. I really hope to see you guys again soon. If you'd like to see more of me, please do hit that subscribe button. Until next time, I hope to see you guys then. Bye. Hi lovely friends of Pile 2. So if you picked the opalite penguin, then this reading is going to be for you. So let's firstly see, who were you in this past life? So we have the One, and we also have Queen Victoria, which is also the Queen of Swords. So I feel like in this life, there's almost this, do you know, we have these really rare moments of we feel almost at peace with being one of a whole, like that our life is quite small, but then also that we're here for a purpose. And it's almost that duality. And I feel like with the One, there was almost this sense and almost this independence of self, and maybe this was almost this judgmental air around it of trying to view your purpose in the universe and in the world. And I feel like that was almost your quest, was trying to find your in. And I feel like as we've got Queen Victoria, and this is, you know, someone, Queen Victoria was a ruler and who was in charge of so much, in charge of the British Empire, and in charge of Britain at such a time, and one of the greatest monarchs, as it were, but was also a mother, all of these things, but also I feel like really misunderstood and almost alone, and had such a sharp intelligence and mind, but wasn't necessarily given potentially all the rights or the acknowledgements potentially within her time and those around her. Kind of living in a world, I'm not trying to say living in a man's world and being a woman or anything, because maybe that is for some people, but I feel like really in this past life it's more that feeling of being in a world where you are different and seen as different, and therefore maybe not being given the opportunities potentially, but knowing that you were there for a reason, and trying to come to terms with that. That's kind of who I see that you were, this One, but also in the whole, like trying to come to terms with that. So let's see what you did. So we have the Dolphin, and we also have Nell Gwyn, which is also the Page of Wands. So I feel like, again, we've got this kind of independent woman, as it were, who, I mean, Nell Gwyn was she was the mistress of James II, but she was so much more than that as well. She was a performer. She was incredible. She had this amazing life, and kind of came against the odds and had this courage and determination, even if people disliked her and didn't like what she stood for and all of those things. She still had such a passion for life, and her will and kind of wanting to get where she wanted to go and climb that ladder, as it were. And I feel like with the Dolphin there is this kind of charismatic nature that when you like met this person with your past life, you would almost alter people around you and maybe challenge views and that kind of thing. And maybe you were quite outspoken, and especially if like I was saying, you know, you were that you were in a world where you weren't necessarily supposed to be doing that. I feel like you challenged a lot of people's views on what you should and shouldn't have been, and you just stuck up for yourself in so many ways. But then there was this complexity within you of no one truly understands who I am. I feel like almost some of it was a bit of a front in order to get to this position where you could speak your mind and get almost in the rooms where I'm hearing room where it happens, like from Alexander Hamilton, like being where it was in the heart of it, but actually still feeling like an imposter there, potentially. So let's see what challenges you also faced. So we have confidence, and we also have a dream of London Bridge, which is also 7 of coins, 7 of pentacles. So with the confidence, it is that maybe confidence in who you were, like we were saying with this one, like understanding you were part of the whole and also one, and maybe you struggled to find your individuality and who you were without all the different things in your life, maybe without a relationship, maybe without work and that kind of thing. Like that, I feel like was almost your personality, as it were. Like maybe you felt like you were made up of all of these different things, which actually none felt like the shoe fit for you. And almost, and maybe for some people, because I said like quite outspoken and charismatic, maybe your confidence became quite a challenge because it maybe rubbed people up the wrong way and that kind of thing. And with the dream of London Bridge, I feel like you were a dreamer, but also maybe the seeds of what you sowed didn't come to fruition straight away, so you lacked confidence in maybe what you were building and what you wanted to become. And there's this almost with the dream of London Bridge, this man had a dream of London Bridge, and that on the bridge he was going to meet someone who was going to give him a gift. And he stood on the bridge for 3 days, and then eventually a shop owner came up to him and said, "What are you doing on this bridge? You've been here for ages." And the guy said, "Oh yeah, I'm waiting for someone." And the guy said, "Oh well, you know, I had a dream of a man from," I can't remember where exactly he was from in England, and there was a treasure under this tree, but you know, if I went and did that, I'm not going to believe everything my dreams told me. And the guy went back to where he lived, went to the tree and found all this treasure. So I feel like that's almost like what there was there. Like maybe you felt like you had a vision of who you were supposed to be and what you were supposed to be doing, but didn't ever quite, or it took you a long time to believe it and kind of come to terms with it and almost dig up that treasure. I feel like there was this independence from the very beginning, but almost trying to fit into a box that didn't actually fit you, but you knew there was something out there. It just took a while to develop, and maybe you lost confidence in that was out there. So let's see how you died. So we have protection, and we also have Epping Forest suicide pool, so which is also the 10 of Swords. So I feel like with the protection, maybe there was a loss of protection. We had Nell Gwyn, which was we had the mistress, as it were. So maybe there was potentially that, maybe security in some way. Maybe if a husband passed away or a partner passed away or someone who looked after you, it might not have been a romantic partner. It could have been a father or something like that. I feel like that's what it was. Like that protection broke away, and maybe that kind of safety net that there was all like that was there vanished. And with Epping Forest suicide pool, this is the story of two lovers that would meet at this particular in Epping Forest, and their love was forbidden, and the father came and basically killed his daughter essentially, and then the lover also killed himself in the same place. And it's almost that that feeling of when someone else passed away, that the fear and the almost insurmountable thought energy and all of that, the kind of environment around you kind of collapsed in, and there was this almost let go and inability to move forward after that point. It felt like almost a hard stop for you, and again a loss of confidence, and maybe I feel like it was almost like a like slipping under the rug, like just the kind of tablecloth was whipped out from you, and that was almost it. And obviously we've got the lovers, which is kind of like Romeo and Juliet, as it were. But maybe if this protection, maybe if you were in this kind of this almost forbidden love, as it were, or kind of, yeah, married to something that you shouldn't have been, and then that being ripped away from you. Yeah, it just feels like a complete loss, and something that you couldn't move past. And maybe it was a secret that you had and didn't tell many people around you about, apart from this person, or the person that you almost locked it into, and so when they left, you didn't really see much point, and almost gave up, as it were. So let's see what lessons you learned. So we have the Peacock, and we also have Lovers, Cuckold's Point. So with Peacock, I feel like maybe the Peacock has this outer beauty and flamboyancy, but there's also this like beautiful center and beautiful heart, and this wisdom and knowledge and like a flourishing personality, but it's almost like that, judging a book by its cover. And I feel like that's almost for you in this past life. I feel like all the time you were judged by your outer appearance of who you were, and almost you lacked confidence in your center and who you knew you were supposed to be, because of the whole around you. And I feel like with the Lovers card, maybe you felt like you married things like this protection and stuff, married things that you maybe didn't fully agree with, or you thought that would help you get to where you wanted to be. Like, that doesn't necessarily have to be people, it means more the kind of actual things that you did in your life. But maybe with the Lovers, maybe you almost split yourself too much, and because when you go into love, you need to make sure that you know who you are and what you're bringing. But like we said throughout, maybe there was this you never truly being understood. And I feel like with the Peacock and with that Lovers card, like you almost came whole, but no one actually accepted your whole, as it were, and your completeness. So you never felt that full unity and concord with someone or something. And I feel like the lessons that were learnt here were that you were so much more without like on your own and in your independence, and maybe for what people gave you credit for. So let's see how you've been influenced ultimately. So we have the Self, and we also have Empress. So that is so interesting that obviously we're speaking about this independence, and I feel like this Self, like you are a prism of who you are. Like so many aspects make up you as an individual, and you are all those things and the other two. And with the One, it's so interesting how we've got kind of this kind of fractured prism from the center, and I feel like that is how you've been influenced, is that you understand that so many different aspects make up you. It's like your heart is in all these different places, and that's okay. Your personality is not swayed by other people. You are strong and independent in your power. And with the Empress, we have got this nurturer and this abundance, and also this beauty in and out. This is Ellen of Ways, Ellen is one of the lost goddesses of London, and is the huntress and all of these things. And I feel like that's almost what you have learned, is that you are yourself, and you don't need to be told and put into a particular box. You can be all of these things and you are still you. The outer things don't determine who you are. Actually, the bits of which you want to take and absorb make up you. And you can flourish and look after what you want and tend to what you want, and cut out that which no longer serves you. So I feel like this past life was a really big lesson in that way of, there was almost this feeling of always knowing that you were almost this vibrant individual in this dolphin who was charismatic and could change the way people think and thought, and you challenged a lot here, but there was this, it's almost like again, kind of ahead of your time in that way, in this past life, in that you almost married to things and didn't quite have this self. You still had this kind of complexity of, I am myself, but actually I am determined by all of these things, and the environment almost seemed to overpower, whereas now there's this more freedom of expression and kind of control of self, and not allowing the outer experiences to fully take away, almost, I'm hearing vibrancy and your willpower and determination and who you are independently on your own. So there's less need to marry to different things for potentially the wrong reasons, and now it's all about stepping into your natural power. And it's almost this, with the Empress we've got this, and also throughout we've had this kind of feminine energy. It doesn't matter if you don't identify as a female, it's just that kind of yin aspect, as it were, that kind of inner peace and inner action and inner knowing of what you are going to achieve, as it were. So my lovely pile 2, I'm going to leave that reading there for you guys today. I hope this resonated with you. I hope, especially like with the lessons learned and how you've been influenced, and maybe if you do feel like that is you, that you know what we were describing at the end there, then you can kind of see where that potentially came from, what kind of energy there was in your past life. So I'm going to leave it there, like I said. So I'd love to see you guys again soon. If you'd like to see more of me, please do hit that subscribe button. I hope to see you guys later. Sending so much love. Bye. Hi lovely friends of pile 3. So if you picked the clear quartz, then this reading is going to be for you. So let's see who you were firstly in this past life. So we have the archetype of the eternal child, and we also have Necropolis Station, which is also known as the 10 of Wands. So I feel like in this past life there is this internal child curiosity and joy, and almost this could be someone who was very successful and almost famous in this life, who brought a lot of joy and almost this this really mysterious and abundant energy which people were drawn to because there was such curiosity and almost lightness, and everyone can connect to that childhood feeling of curiosity and discovery, and almost that there was almost this outer presence of success and knowing who you were, and unashamedly kind of walking around in this power, as it were. And I feel like you never lost that charm that we see in children, like how blunt they can be and how truthful and to the point, and how whatever they get they almost want, because they they kind of speak their mind in that way. But with the 10 of Wands, there was probably this these great burdens and oppressions that you felt in terms of being this eternal child to everyone all the time. Like your passion and your will and your creativity, it was all there. You were determined to make a difference and change, but it felt like you had to hold it all in, and maybe there was some treachery among people, or maybe you were almost traitorous to yourself in a way that you didn't allow everyone to see maybe what was burdening you, and allow people in fully and kind of help take things off your load, as it were, because you felt like you had to go it alone, because you felt like you had been put into this position, and maybe this very early success in this life for a reason, and maybe you just couldn't see anyone else helping you in that way. And I think probably quite a lot of emotional trauma happened to you maybe when you were quite young, that you overcame, but you never really fully allowed anyone to, you never really fully came to terms with it, and maybe squashed that part of yourself, and didn't really want to allow that to affect your light, as it were. But it made you bold and creative, and someone that people wanted to be drawn to. It was almost that it's like the Achilles heel, but what people were were kind of drawn to as well, was this rawness about you. So let's see what you did as well. So we have the dragon, and we also have Sun, Apollo at Westminster Cathedral. Obviously Apollo is the god of music, light, poetry, the arts. So I feel like you could have been a performer in that kind, someone who again spreads joy and light. And there is this with the Sun, it is this clarity and wisdom and overall abundance and joy. And I feel like you cast almost everyone else in a shadow. So you were probably famous in this life and renowned for whatever you did. And with the dragon, there is this self, this really strong, this is linked to the third chakra, kind of the sacral chakra. And I feel like maybe like the solar plexus chakra, sorry. And I feel like there was this kind of internal balance and almost overcoming the ego outwardly, but actually I feel like there was still that yet to be able to transcend the ego as well. Like I feel like people almost thought you were spiritually and outer worldly with maybe what you were talking or singing or writing, whatever it was about in that creative way, but actually there was that kind of hidden imbalance. So maybe the outward projection and the kind of societal mask that you wore didn't necessarily match up which with these kind of burdens and oppressions. And maybe you felt like you were a bit of a I'm hearing like on the rat wheel, like you had to constantly churn out, and maybe you lost some of that joy for what you were doing at points. But there was this energy where people were watching you and were drawn to what you were doing, and you were probably on a very high pedestal, as it were, and maybe your name is still known, like your past life name is still known today. So that's pretty cool. So let's see what challenges you face. So there's this sadness, and we also have Jack the Ripper, also the devil. So I feel like with sadness, underneath the devil, I feel like the burdens and oppressions that you were under probably led you to addictions and maybe repression of aspects of yourself, and not really fully, it kind of the shadow aspects. I feel like there was probably probably dependencies on substances or that kind of thing, chasing after money, politics, sex, that kind of thing, stuff that feeling like you were almost on the string and not really tapping into this internal child, the joy of who you were, and almost hiding behind all of these different things. And with the Jack the Ripper, I feel like there's almost like a death to aspects of yourself, like not fully allowing the world to see you, and maybe potentially isolation, and filling up with things that I'm hearing the song Black Hole, like you felt like you were a bit of a void, and almost a vortex for sadness coming at you, but you had to be this figure of light and this joy and this enlightenment, and two juxtaposed each other so much. And maybe whether it was drinks, drugs, or that kind of thing, in this devil card, or sex, or whatever it was, the kind of physical chasing of things that don't really make your heart glad, and it takes you further away from spirituality and your sense of self, as a coping mechanism to deal with the underlying feelings of potentially loneliness, and maybe with the Jack of the Ripper card, maybe a lot of people maybe were taken away from you in a lot of ways as well. Maybe death surrounded you quite heavily, maybe in terms of your kind of outward circle. So it made you almost feel isolated even further, especially in this position. So let's see what how you died in this life. So we have sweetness, and then we have the Two of Cups, which is Tens Nymphs. So I feel like with the sweetness card, and the Two of Cups, I feel like a lot of love came into your life at the end. So even though you had this this sadness and possibly dependence on substances or that kind of thing, or just feeling like you were chasing the wrong things and you weren't doing things to make your heart glad anymore, I think at the end there was almost this sweetness of life, and almost looking back on all that you achieved and the legacy that you made in the position that you were, and maybe that connected you to a deep love, and you were surrounded by so many people that had unity and concord with you, and that river runs deep, as it were. So I feel like that almost pulled, it's kind of that bittersweet feeling, is what I'm hearing, like, because we've got sadness and sweetness, like bittersweet, that your death came about, but actually the legacy that you had and all that you created still stood for itself, and I feel like at the end there was this like looking back over the sweetness of life, and actually that you did do what you loved, even though it brought along with it so many dark aspects. Almost the sun shines through that, like that shines through the darkness, and your light, even if it felt dim at times, it was still there, and that was still who you were. You were still this internal child, no matter what was clouding it, or whether you felt like something got in the way of you truly showing that. I feel like there was that at the end. So let's see what lessons were learnt. So we have this shark, and we also have justice, Old Bailey. So I feel like with the shark, there was, again, it's this kind of hidden aspects lurking in the deep. So with the Thames nymphs, that's really interesting, because we've got this obviously water at the surface, and I feel like it's like down below there were things lurking and encircling, and probably this was the kind of devil aspects and the oppressions and the burdens which were never allowed to be given to other people, and kind of this air of mystery and not speaking your truth that constantly kind of brought you out of balance. And with the shark, it's this need to be honest and almost come clean, as it were. But I feel like that's what was learned, that actually you didn't need to do it alone, that that was eating you alive, as it were. Maybe the lies or the suppressed secrets that you were telling to yourself or not confronting, they were still there, almost circling you and kind of waiting to strike. And with the justice, all seeds that were sown, whether good or bad, had an outcome in the end. So I feel like it was that like all of the good things that you did in this life, and there were loads, and especially in terms of like artistry and creativity and sharing wisdom and light to the world, that brought around the scales of balance, in terms of that still stands for it, everything has that truth. But also there was all of this sadness and almost tying to things that did not serve you, that also it's that kind of it's kind of karma in that way, that karmic cycle. But I feel like there was this understanding of I know that if I had confronted that and had taken that away, like it's that learning and understanding that would have affected the future outcomes, as it were. So yeah, it's really hard to kind of put into words what I'm trying, like with the justice card, but it is that kind of what goes around comes around. And I feel like everything that this life did had a purpose and affected the balance, no matter whether it was good or bad. It was an example and and had a purpose and a reason, and there was a lot to be learned from there. And maybe you're feeling the kind of the scales in this life as well, or like we said, it went from bitter to sweet, as it were, or there was this internal balance towards the end, like understanding and accepting the past and what had happened, and the fact that the burdens, oppressions, and maybe potentially the secrets that you were keeping had an effect. So there is almost this peace at the end, and realizing that the lurking almost deceit or mystery needed to be uncovered. Sorry, that took a little while to get there, but that's what I was trying to get to. So let's see how you have been influenced. So we have the Creator, and we also have the Eight of Cups, which is the Tower Ravens. So I feel like with the Creator, you could be a creative in terms of maybe creating light out of darkness, like loss, like hope out of loss, is what I'm hearing. And emotionally, like finding and being able to project your vision onto things that maybe potentially people feel empty around, or that kind of thing. There's also, with this Eight of Cups, I feel like you're not afraid to abandon success if it's not going to emotionally fulfill you now, which is kind of what we've learned. Like maybe in terms of in what your past life went through, you know, walking away from things that don't serve your purpose. And even if you've got so far, like a stagnant situation, or something that isn't bringing joy anymore, it is better to walk away from that in search of something new, in search of creating your own path, and kind of using the palette of life, as it were, to create a new journey for yourself, than stay in a stagnant energy where it feels like it's going to be in a cyclical pattern. If you're not learning and understanding from the past and letting go, then you won't be able to move forward and actually make changes. And I feel like there's almost this vibrancy with life, and need, and free expression is what I'm hearing too. And maybe it's because here it feels like, you know, it's internal child. It feels like it's all almost wrapped up in this egg, as it were, almost like the perfect package of what you need to be. Whereas this feels more expansive and expressive, and loads of different avenues potentially. And how you've been influenced is hopefully knowing that you don't need to stay around in a situation, and it is okay to abandon things if they don't feel right emotionally and they don't emotionally fulfill you. So and that's all speaking truth as well. That is speaking your truth and confronting the dark aspects, the things that are lurking there, the things that we don't want to, you know, that stagnant energy of something maybe we once believed in and poured and funneled hope into. It's okay to walk away from that if it no longer serves your purpose, and if there's something else out there following your intuition in that way. So my glorious, glorious friends of pile 3, I'm going to leave that past life reading there for you. I hope it resonated with you, especially at the end there with how you've been influenced, and maybe you can see and understand maybe some of the lessons from this past life, and how that helps you now in this iteration of you. I'm sending so much love to you. I really hope to see you guys soon. If you'd like to see me again, please do hit that subscribe button. Until next time, I hope to see you guys there. Bye. Hello, my glorious friends of pile 4. So if you picked the rose quartz heart, then this reading is going to be yours, exploring one of your past lives. So let's see who you were firstly. So we have got the Siren archetype, and we've also got the Great Fire of London in the forms of the 8 of Wands. So I feel like with this Siren, this is almost this temptation, temptress kind of, it's kind of this like alluring, almost femme fatale energy that there's this mysticism, and also this deep kind of psychic spirituality in this depth, and almost diving into the unknown, and there is this kind of sensual nature to it as well, and following almost passions and desires, which 8 of Wands, you know, that can be your willpower, your determination, your intuition. So I feel like in this past life, the person that you were was maybe someone who wasn't afraid to indulge in maybe life's pleasures, or kind of in almost a kind of sexual awakening, as it were, and that kind of that kind of ownership over yourself and your body. And I feel like with the Great Fire of London, the Eight of Wands, I feel like you were a catalyst for a lot of people. I feel like you were, maybe it's a kind of a timeline for your life, maybe it was quite swift and almost uncontrollable, as it were, but I feel more that you almost set fires almost where you went, and there was this kind of blaze energy, and like I said, this catalyst, like your thoughts and maybe what you spoke about in terms of that kind of psychic, maybe spiritual awareness, and that depth, almost lured other people, lured other people away, and almost dragged them into the depths of maybe hidden knowledge about self. And it's kind of like this egg, this hatching and awakening, and maybe kind of planting seeds in that way. So let's see what you did as well. So we have this camel, and we also have Queen Victoria. So I feel like with the camel and also Queen of Victoria, which is also the Queen of Swords, I feel like there was this deep emotional, it's this kind of fighting fire with the water, and the camel is all and one, and it's this kind of captivating creature that almost has like a star in their eyes. So I get that maybe that you had this ability to bring people round to your way of thinking, and that was a really big catalyst, and you could almost make people believe what you wanted them to believe, not and almost manipulate people's thoughts, but because what you were kind of talking about, you spoke about with so much passion and fire, and also had that emotional pull. And with the camel, I feel like there was this constant kind of head over heart balancing, like your intuition and that fire and that deep kind of guttural urge to do things and get things moving and change was so strong, but maybe your thoughts, even though they were one of your greatest strengths in terms of being able to communicate your truth, I feel like maybe that left you with quite a lot of independence, but because you were independent in your thinking, but maybe those thoughts almost turned in and became quite judgmental sometimes. So there was this kind of balancing that was needed in terms of the camel, fighting the fire, the passion, with more of a nurturing kind of water energy. But yeah, with the Queen Victoria, I feel like in this life there was just this independence, knowing who you were and what you stood for. So let's see what challenges you overcame. So we have pain, and we also have death. So, and this is the Saint Specula, I hope I'm saying that right, handbell. So with pain and also death, it's together, I mean, it paints a picture, doesn't it? Just the words. But I feel like there was this pain in releasing patterns, and maybe there was physical death around, or just a lot of change that happened within your life. Maybe the changing of circles, maybe the changing views of the world potentially as well, is what I'm hearing. But either way, it felt like almost your time was running out. Like there was this swiftness here, there, and almost this inability sometimes to let go because of the pain of what that would bring, and maybe sometimes a stubbornness to kind of go with the seasons and kind of evolve and change. But then because you were so independent, but maybe the people around you, maybe especially if they left or they changed or passed away or whatever it was, I feel like the emotional trauma, maybe you didn't speak about it a lot, maybe you didn't share it a lot, but that was one thing that even you almost wanted to move past it quickly and almost skip past the hard times. But there was a lot of sorrow, a lot of things that were almost taken away from you, and there was almost this feeling of loneliness. So let's see how you died as well. So we have anxiety, and we also have the Ace of Wands in form of St. Paul's Cathedral hunting rights. So I feel like with the anxiety card and the Ace of Wands, with this kind of birth of a new idea, a new creation, maybe you were fighting for a new idea or a new ideal that came to you, almost this divine inspiration, as it were, and what you were chasing. Maybe you were chasing after something, and at the time of death, that brought quite a lot of anxiety. But I also get this, because it's kind of this birthing and creating, I'm also hearing it could be childbirth for some people, but that might not be for everything, because this is kind of creation out of wills and passions, as it were. But I get more that it was almost chasing after something that you inherently wanted, and felt like had been given to you, but maybe led you astray. Maybe your thoughts led you astray, because we've got this, again, the constant battle between head and heart. The head screaming anxiety, it's basically the same colour as that Queen of Swords. The anxiety of what your mind was telling you should be doing, and then the struggle to bring in that fire and follow your intuition and your spark. And I feel like maybe that burden and oppression, and what you stood for, and everything was almost your end. And maybe it came really, like with this swiftness card, really abruptly. Maybe you only just got started with this seed of an idea, and something happened which almost stopped you in your tracks, and it's like it was cut off. That flame was cut off before it even got an opportunity to be funneled into a new direction and into being, as it were. So let's see what lessons were learned as well in this life. So we have Tiger, and we also have Epping Forest, Suicide Pool, which is the 10 of Swords. So ultimately, what lessons were learned from this life is, with the Tiger, we've got this, again, duality between night and kind of this fire and burning passion. And I feel like the Tiger is at home in this dark, in their intuition and in their inner knowledge and almost sensuality again. So I feel like it's almost this sensuality of self, of what kind of burns inside of you, and your desires and your passions, of where you want to direct that. So maybe if the outer world caused anxiety and pain, and with the 10 of Swords, again, you know, this the kind of environment that encased this past life, and all the pain and the turmoil and the kind of death that were felt like the wrong incubus, as it were, in order for this idea, this spark, and also this flame, this person who was such a flame, who was such a light, who could draw people to them, and like I say, like almost tempt them into a new way of thinking. Like I'm thinking big ideas which people didn't want to confront, and that was almost the death. Like it's almost like a fly over a glass. It felt like it was just suffocating this person, and it was almost a death to the thoughts. And with this lesson, it's like, don't allow your thoughts to be the detriment. Follow your inner knowledge, this almost high priestess intuition that I'm getting from this Tiger. And your light burns brightly in this night sky, no matter how dark the night is. Your light is your guiding force. And there is that, and always there's so much duality here between inherently as a person there is so much passion and fire, but it's the thoughts that get in the way each time in this kind of jigsaw puzzle together. So what lessons were learned is to follow that spark, and don't allow the fears and anxieties maybe projected onto you by society or people around you in the sphere, as it were, almost the glass, to dampen that light and take you out of balance. So let's see how you have been influenced as well. So we have the King archetype, and we have King Lud as well, who is also known as King of Coins or King of Pentacles. So 2 kings. So I feel like in this lifetime, there is this almost, maybe I'm getting like almost magician. So it's still this, in this life, it felt much more of high priestess, like I was saying, like this almost this yin energy, this unconscious active principle waiting to be activated, like this deep intuition and inner knowledge there, but not yet brought about into the yang, like the action energy. And with the king, it feels like this is much more magician energy of being a channel and a lightning rod for the divine, and bringing about and almost affecting people's lives from a position of authority. So I feel like in this life, and how you've been influenced, is that there's almost, you are in control of your outer circumstances, and can almost that you kind of can channel that divine energy in a different, more active way into the being and affect the lives of people, because maybe you've been given a better position than you had in your past life in order to do that, in order to speak your truth and create what you want to create. And there is, with the King Lud as well, there's this kind of bullish nature to what you want to create and what you want to do, and almost this natural like charisma that has been given to you, very much like what was in the past life, but there's less to do with the thoughts and that kind of thing. It's much more that intention and that sensation to the world, and almost now you are the effect for the outer. You don't allow outer experiences and maybe societal structures to rule you. Instead, you kind of bend them to your will, is what I'm hearing, and challenge it in that way. And there is as well with the King Lud, because, you know, Lud, London, it's kind of the first king, as it were, of London. But I feel like it's this, you're almost an innovator in that way. You are creating something potentially which other people may not understand at this moment, or maybe new, but actually is going to have long-term stability and security, and legacy as well. I feel like that's what's being brought about, and it's all from still channeling that intuitive, emotional, like knowing, as it were, but in a different way, and not allowing kind of putting that into the physical world, as it were, and channeling it in there, as opposed to constantly almost trying to fight against it, and fighting against, almost bending the rules to your will, is what I'm hearing. So that's kind of how this life has influenced you. Still have that spark, still have that knowledge, but maybe not allowing the pain and the turmoil, and accepting the changes, and the changes that are always constantly happening, and the cycles. And with the king, I get reminded of the Wheel of Fortune, and you know, that it can sometimes be seen as the king like at the top sitting on the throne, and then falling to misfortune, and then climbing up, in that kind of cyclical nature. And I feel like that is almost you playing the game of life and moving with the changes in that Wheel of Fortune, kind of like luck and misfortune, and almost riding that wave, as it were, and playing the game of life, and knowing that you can channel and change your outer circumstances by changes in you and your internal world as a reflection of that. So my glorious friends of Pile 4, I'm going to leave that reading there for you guys today. I hope, especially at the end, kind of like how this has influenced you and what lessons were learned in the past life. I hope that resonated, and I hope you can maybe see how that came about within you. I am sending so much love to you, and I really hope to see you guys again soon. If you'd like to see me again, please do hit that subscribe button. Until next time, I hope to see you guys there. Bye. Hi there, lovely friends of Pile 5. So if you picked the Unakite crystal, then this is going to be your reading. So let's get into it. Let's see who you were in this past life. So we firstly have the mother, and we also have the star. With mother, I think less of maybe there were children in this life, but I feel like more of, I'm hearing more earth mother, like the birthplace of ideas. I felt like there was almost this need to nurture and bring about, and having faith and trust and pouring faith into maybe something that you couldn't see. It was that intention behind it, and there was this birth of an idea or a thought that needed to be brought around. And with the mother, this is the feminine, but it's the positive, the nurturer, the abundance, the kind of the creator, as it were, and holding all of that and nourishing it fully. But then there's also the negative aspects of maybe too constricting and almost guarding, and can almost stint growth as well. So there is this kind of this energy of, there's obviously this there was this purpose and this felt purpose in this past life to bring something about, and having that intent behind it, and this faith that it was the right thing to do. But sometimes maybe there was that that kind of lack of spirituality, maybe not fully feeling like it was going to, like the fruits of the labor, as it were going to come about, that maybe it felt like there was a great delay to what you wanted to do, but ultimately at the heart of it, with the star, also the glass bead necklaces, there's the story in London law is that children would be given these necklaces to prevent them from illness, and it was the intent that this necklace would protect you. And it's having faith in something that can't be seen, and knowing that it's going to be brought about. So that was who you were. So let's see what you did in this life. So we have the butterfly firstly, and we also have lovers, cuckold's point. So with the butterfly, I feel like there was, again, it's this cocoon, it's this kind of, firstly, this cocoon in which things were to grow. So it's almost like in the early stages of this life, there was maybe this suffocation, maybe this restriction, but inside there was this need for change, this need to come out. And that you know, there, it could have been from a loving family, nurturing family with a tight cocoon around, but there was that need to break free from that, and still change and show the world your wings, as it were. And with the Lovers card, I feel like this is marrying and having concord and loving what you were doing and having a great affinity with that. Paired with the star here, there's so much faith and healing and reassurance in this transformation and this big change that you underwent in this life, and maybe it feels like a full 360, like we're saying, like from what you thought potentially, or the outer circumstances, almost the incubus, as it were, of then where you went. It feels like you almost became a completely different person to how you started your life. Maybe you married different aspects of yourself, and ultimately you felt this wholeness. Obviously we've got the mother, and we've obviously got lovers, so there might have been great passion and you know, children and a legacy in that way in your life, but I see this much more as a transformative time, and like I said, marrying what you loved to do. So let's see what challenges were faced. So we have space, and we have the Five of Wands, Peasant's Revolt. So with the space card, I feel like it was almost this space, this void of not being able to, like we were saying about the cocoon, maybe not being able to take up space, maybe feeling suffocated, and not allowed to nurture in the right way. Maybe, like I said, maybe towards the end of your life is when this butterfly, this transformation came out, and there was a lot of reasons to doubt and not have faith, and almost restriction for growth at the beginning. But with the Peasant's Revolt, I feel like there was probably quite a lot of conflicts and opposing wills and desires coming at you during this time, that maybe made you feel small and that you couldn't take up space. Or maybe you weren't sure that the space that you wanted to occupy was potentially available to you, is what I'm hearing for some people. But I ultimately think it's almost this like this black void, maybe what you did, like I said, changed and birthed a new idea and changed the focus and the way people thought and maybe interacted and almost challenged a lot of different people's wills and desires, and you weren't sure whether you had the voice and the ability to take up that space, and maybe that was the challenge, you doubting that that almost urge that you felt to bring about this change. So let's see how you ultimately died. So we have the Abundance card, and we also have the Three of Cups, which is also the card of abundance, but this is Billingsgate Roman Bathhouse. So I feel like in your life you probably accumulated a lot of wealth, potentially for your ideas, what you created, that creative spark that you had, and championing over other people's kind of wills and desires, and making that space. And almost I'm hearing like finding the space, like if it's a new idea, like thinking out the box, thinking out and creating something in this almost void. And there was a lot of abundance here, and you know, and this strong community of like-minded individuals around, and this need to converse and celebrate and have a full life. And I feel like, especially at the beginning, where maybe there was feeling of stinted growth or a feeling of imposter syndrome, or not quite sure how to get this this idea through, and this birth and this change, it ultimately paid off in abundance and in a legacy, I feel, for those people around you and those people closest to you. I'm also hearing as well, you know, maybe there was, in terms of family, because like we said, with children, and maybe that was that as well, maybe surrounded by your family, surrounded by the legacy that you created. And we've got this real kind of change in fortune, as it were, because almost coming out of circumstances and a situation that could have stinted your growth and not being able to move forward, to then this almost change of fortune. Potentially there was this feeling of having to put faith and trust in the universe that your circumstances were going to change and things were going to get better, and by marrying the right opportunities, and I'm hearing social butterfly and almost climbing socially, that's how you created this abundance, even if there were these feelings of you not being able to take up that space, and maybe other people not being so sure of you. There's still this kind of independence and knowing who you are, and still finding your like-minded souls who understand you, and kind of celebrating in plenty, especially towards the end. So in terms of deaths, in how you might have died in a past life, this is definitely one of the nicer ones that we've seen today. So let's see again what lessons have been learned from this past life, what was potentially learned by the end. So we've got the Sea Serpent, which again is this second chakra, and this is almost this, again, we've got this image of kind of wrapping around, kind of potentially stifling growth, but actually it's this kind of balancing emotionally and sensually of who you are, and almost that idea of self, and bringing that into balance, and trusting that, and that point where that comes from. And we've also got Dick Whittington here as well, who's the Page of Coins or Pentacles. And I feel like with Dick Whittington, again, born in circumstances in which weren't favourable at the time, and put his faith into something, and later the payoff came, and accumulated great wealth and abundance. And it is that change of fortune, trusting who you are, and trusting your almost ability to kind of seek beauty and seek truth in the world and express yourself fully, and not being afraid of almost the ever-changing cycles and the ever-changing self that you feel. that creates this opportunity and this coin with abundance, this flowing energy. Maybe there was this putting faith into something that other people couldn't necessarily see, with this kind of opposing wills and desires, but then having the payoff. It's almost like investments for the future, as it were. Maybe studying or taking up space, like we were saying, in something. Maybe you're an inventor or something along those lines, invented a new way of maybe doing something that then paid off. Or maybe thoughts, maybe writing is what I'm hearing as well. Maybe for some people it's like writing a book, and that as well, like having the fruits of those labours come to you at a much later date than when you started. So yeah, in this life, I feel like that's almost what was learned, is that as long as you are true to yourself and you're expressing your truth and your emotions fully, and have that strong sense, then whatever you are putting your time and effort into, those investments will pay off in ways that you may never have expected at a later date. So you may not be able to see the fruits of your labour like right now, essentially. But yeah, I feel like it's the kind of justice, the cyclical karma it will come to you, especially if you allow it movement and time to breathe, like we have with the butterfly in the cocoon. As soon as there's almost that relax, then something new can transform and take place. So let's see as well how you have been influenced by this past life. So we have the Starborn archetype, and we also have Kate Seller, Hermit. So with the Starborn, again, we've got this kind of cosmic egg, as it were, and here we have this pearl, and I feel like it's almost this birth of you and this feeling of kind of fate and destiny, but not, I'm very aware that not everyone kind of, destiny is something you can change. You're given signposts and you can change that, and fate is much more, you know, you're born under this star and you believe at this point and XYZ, but I feel like it's much more destiny. Like there's this feeling that you were meant to be doing something, taking up space for a purpose, to maybe change the way people think. So I feel like it's almost this kind of, this past life is continuing because the lessons were almost learned, as it were, and trusting your inner light in this Hermit card, trusting that time away from outer worries and outer circumstances, maybe things that are stifling your growth, and following your inner light and trusting that you were destined for a journey to bring about something and influence and change. And there's this feeling of expansion and yeah, that you were almost destined for greatness. And with the Hermit, it's not being afraid of, because Kate Seller, Kate was believed to be a witch and was almost shunned by society, but really took themselves away to nurture their own light. And I feel like, and almost a bit of an outlaw. And I feel like that's it, you know, you are where you're going. You may not know necessarily where your path is taking you, but you know your light will guide you there, as it has in the past, like marrying your light, trusting and having faith and nurturing that within you and allowing it to take form. And I feel like there is this almost deep, almost spirituality in some sense in this lifetime, with there is a greater purpose, or there is this co-creation with the universe, almost this manifestation of, I need to make sure I am doing actions and I am following my light and following the right things, and I'm on the path already, and trusting that you and also Spirit has your back and is going to take you to where you want to go. So yeah, and I feel like no matter what the circumstances, again, like in this past life, no matter what the circumstances are, maybe at the time of your birth with the Starborn, it's kind of, that's, you know, under the night sky that you were born with birth chart and that kind of thing. But no matter what birth chart you were almost born under, or what star or what circumstances, there is this ability to change with free will, determination, and fanning your light and allowing that to be a beacon for others and the divine. And you can change in that way and allow people to follow you by being true to yourself and what you believe. So and also that's kind of very similar to that space, sorry, like taking up your own space, creating your own space with this Kate Seller, you know, and not allowing yourself space to grow. So my glorious friends of pile 5, I'm going to leave that reading there for you guys. I hope, especially at the end, it resonated with you, with what lessons and how you're influenced, and I hope the kind of story of the past life kind of helped you realize those things maybe, and helps you maybe connect some dots. I'd love to hear in the comment section as well. I'm sending so much love to you guys. I really hope to see you again soon. If you'd like to see me again, please do hit that subscribe button. Until next time, I hope to see you guys there. Bye. Hello my glorious friends of pile 6. So if you picked the fluorite moon, then this reading is going to be for you guys. So let's explore one of your past lives. So who you were, we've got the archetype of the mentor, and we've also got world, represented by the Globe Theatre. So I feel like in this lifetime, I feel like the mentor, it's kind of this teacher who takes people under their wing, as it were, and almost knows the divine. It's almost sipping like the divine river, as it were, and the lessons, and nurturing that within other people, and allowing other people to take a sip, and basically a great teacher potentially of a new way of thinking, an expansive knowledge of the world as a whole. And with the world card, we do get that, this completion, this kind of coexistence in this kind of victory and cosmic egg, this sense of super consciousness, conscious, unconscious, all married together in one body, and almost wielding that. And with the Globe Theatre, it's like all the world's a stage. I feel like the world was your stage, and people were listening to you and wanted you to teach them, and maybe you played many parts. But with the mentor, we also do have this like shadow aspect, where maybe at times there was this self-serving, because you were in a position of almost authority and being listened to. And maybe there was from when you first started along this path in this past life to this completion and this wholeness and almost this spiritual awakening, maybe along the way there was like maybe that loss of being a student as well to life, because still the teacher remains a student for all, and for good. There's also this sense of traveling, and potentially traveling the world and bringing these new ideas to a large audience, I get with that Globe Theatre as well. So let's see what you did do in this life. So we have got the Swan, and we've also got the Magician. So there is this creative expression, again, this spirituality, and this Magician is represented by John Dee, who was a magician in the court of Elizabeth I, and was an alchemist and astronomer, and you know, brought all of these ideas to the forefront, or especially of kind of a palace life, as it were, in a life where and bringing it to a new audience. And again, we've got this kind of snippiness, and there is this artistic beauty in the world, and like I said, being a lightning rod for the divine. And there is definitely this teacher here, and this bringer about of change, and this determination and this willpower to make a difference and to manifest what you desire. But potentially with the Swan, there is this, maybe not everyone reflected the beauty in the world that you wanted to see potentially, or maybe not everyone was willing to kind of feel your expression of the world. So there could have been a bit of frustration, but ultimately I feel like you were in a position of power in order to kind of bring change about. So let's see what challenges you faced. So we have anger. So again, anger at the world, anger about maybe how you were able to voice your opinions and your thoughts. And we also have smog, which is the Two of Swords. So with the smog, there is this, like, you are almost this burning light in this darkness. Potentially you were revered, but maybe not all of your thoughts were taken on board, or not everyone wanted to be taught. And it's like, you know, when the student is ready, the teacher will arrive, and you felt like you were almost a prophet for your time, like a teacher. But there was this anger because not everyone was ready to listen, not everyone wanted to. And there's this kind of stalemate here, like knowing that the path and the trajectory that you were manifesting and wanting to be on, and the path everyone else was, and you were kind of stuck in this stalemate of not really being able to move forward. And there is great anger because you almost feel like there was this higher knowing, this divine energy around you, this wisdom that you were given, that not everyone took on board. I'm hearing like prophet for your time. So whatever situation, no matter what kind of century you were born in, whatever year, it feels like that thing of not being able to get your point across, and just feeling stinted, like growing so far and then getting to a point where it's almost like you get shut down and shut off. So let's see how you died eventually. So we have passion, and we also have the sewer gas lamp, which is the 2 of coins. So I feel like with this passion card, which again feels like 2 options, it feels like you died doing what you loved. So essentially being this mentor, and maybe you came to peace with the fact that not everyone was going to understand, and maybe you almost reinvented the way in which you were going to tell people about this plan. But this is really the card, the 2 of coins or pentacles, of kind of gaiety and recreation, and kind of juggling 2 aspects of yourself. So I kind of see juggling the material, juggling the passion that you felt. So if there was this kind of caught, like I said earlier, like this being caught up maybe in the shadow aspects of the mentor, where it was a bit more self-serving and that kind of thing, maybe at one point that's what was being chased, was almost the acknowledgement and that kind of thing. But actually there was this expression, there was this passion that was really fueling it, and trying to break through. Again, there's this light at the center of people's lives, and you were trying to be a beacon and be a representation of the divine, with the magician, the divine on earth, and kind of bring around this change. And there was this real need to kind of make action, make moves, and at the point of death, I feel like it was almost, maybe there was a seed of an idea of how to bring about this change, this new, maybe in terms of the physical world, a sensation, maybe a monetary thing, or a project or something like that, a passion project that was brought around and maybe thought of, but it only really got to a 2. It never really got as far as hoped. I feel like maybe it was kind of struck down in the prime of following this next thing. But let's see what lessons were learned. So we have the starfish, and we also have the 2 of cups, which is Thames nymphs in this deck. So with the starfish, I feel like there again is this outward beauty and this mysticism and this draw, this allure to this person, and this magnetism and this light did bring people there, and there was passion, and there was this need. A lot of people, even during the smog, even if there were people that kind of ignored it and there was anger towards there was still a great amount of people that wanted to learn from you. And I feel like there was this mentor in the light aspects and the light attributes as well, of being someone who was divinely connected and was able to share that wisdom and enact change for a lot of people. But also with the starfish, there is this kind of again, what was learned is that, you know, that there are these darker aspects as well, these shadow aspects, and actually connecting ultimately to what you love, and with this 2 of cups energy, and following those passions and the deep emotional and kind of divine pull that you are feeling, that is much more nourishing for the soul. It's so interesting that we've got 2 water, swan and starfish as well. It's all about the artistic expression and kind of that emotional pull and nurturing. And that's ultimately, I feel like maybe if there was this getting caught up in the monetary values or in the thoughts of other people and how you weren't changing things and the anger and frustration at that, ultimately there was a connection to what you loved and the belief in what you were doing in this 2 of Cups, and finding concord with that, and you ultimately married the right things. Maybe you were still proud of who you were and this wisdom that you had and this kind of I'm hearing this channel that you were, but there was this acceptance of, okay, sometimes I didn't chase the right things, and I know that almost love conquers all, as it were, is what I'm hearing. So let's see how you have been influenced by this. So we have the poet archetype, and we also have the Greenwich witch bottle. So with the poet, I feel like there's almost you going into the depths of and the darkness and the places that not everyone wants to go to, and bringing back light. And I'm hearing again, because we've got Globe Theatre, maybe in this life as well with the mentor, maybe it was a kind of playwright or an artist in that way, in that artistic expression, and not everyone understanding you that way. So really captivating starfish personality who did it from a place of love and everything, but maybe not everyone came to the stage as you were hoping for. But with the poet, there's this almost knowing that you are meant to be heightening the kind of, again, mental, heightening almost the consciousness of the world and bringing about poetry, life, creativity, to other people, going into those depths which maybe not everyone is ready to confront, and bringing something out of it, and leaning into almost the darkness and into the divine energy as well. It's very much a very similar soul pattern, but we've got this 4 of Wands here with the Greenwich witch bottle, and this is very much connecting and sowing the seeds for a benefit of a later day, and kind of connecting to this soul family and the people of like-minded individuals who are going to help support your growth, even if not everyone wants to kind of eat what you're serving, is what I'm hearing. Like, if not everyone wants to know what you're offering and bringing about, there are people out there, and I feel like you've almost connected to those people that will not allow you to bottle it up, as it were, and like open up that cork and want to know what you have to say and bring about. And maybe there's this feeling of bottling up here with this anger and everything, but actually now how you've been influenced is realizing that you have this starfish energy and this swan energy, and all of this, you have this great ability to create, and especially from a place where people don't want to go, but knowing that it's not for everyone, and that is okay. And actually there are a lot of people that you lean into who want to celebrate you, who share the same passions, wills and desires that you have. And, you know, I'm hearing, because of the Greenwich witch bottle, it was found under a person's house in Greenwich in London, with kind of, it was a protective bottle essentially, with like urine and nails and loads of different bits, but essentially to protect the house and the occupants of the house. And it was found many centuries later, and it's that kind of thing that almost planting seeds and leaving something for someone or people that you will not necessarily meet, and there's that great saying, which I'm going to absolutely butcher, which is, you know, the people that understand life, the people that plant seeds and won't necessarily experience the shade that comes about after that. They won't necessarily be living when it's fully come about. So that's how I feel like there was this great frustration in the past life that things weren't happening there and then and now, but actually I feel like there's almost that there was acceptance in this kind of what lessons were learnt, that you were still alluring, you're still attractive, everyone was still drawn to you, and you were doing what you loved. But actually now you just do what you love, and it doesn't matter because you do have a community around you. You can kind of almost see outside the smog, and they probably did have it as well, because like I said, they had this position, and they were this position of the mentor. But this is where it differs, is that you don't worry about enlightening and changing the people, and you can't force anyone to do that. You realise that people can only change if they're willing to do that. So you can put out what you want to, and trust that the people that want to follow your light and follow your guidance will come to you naturally, and when they are ready to receive it, and kind of take that on board. So my glorious friends, the Florent moon pile, I'm going to leave that reading there for you guys. I hope it resonated, especially at the end, with kind of how you've been influenced and what lessons were learned. I hope that kind of the story of the past life helped kind of mesh that all together, and maybe realize why you're kind of in this iteration how you are. And I'd love to know in the comments if it did resonate as well. I am sending so much love to you guys. I really hope to see you guys soon. If you'd like to see me again, please do hit that subscribe button. And until next time, I hope to see you guys there. Sending so much love. Bye. Hi there, my glorious friends of pile 7. So if you picked the amethyst butterfly, then this reading is going to be for you. So let's explore one of your past lives. So who were you in this past life? So we have got the Maiden card, and we've also got Smog, which is also the Two of Swords in this deck. So I feel like with the Maiden, there was this is the first of our triad of Maiden, Mother, Crone. And I feel like with the Maiden, it's this almost maybe naive, mystical sense of self, and this need to learn and embody and kind of step into this womanhood, as it were, and understanding the world in a deeper sense, instead of this almost naivety and curiosity as almost the maiden, as the child, as it were. And it feels like in this life, there's always this kind of stalemate into the path that you are supposed to tread, and maybe the path that you want to tread, and maybe this crossroads and this inability to let go of the past, and maybe this romanticism of youth and how things were. And I feel like maybe especially the youth was a secure and abundant time, and when things had to change and this smog appeared, as it were, maybe kind of the black soul of life, as it were, and that kind of clouding and maybe fears and anxieties started to slip in. That was quite hard in this past life to let go of, and there was this loggerheads as to moving forward, which had to happen in a lot of ways. And I feel like your societal structures was a big contributor to that, in order to having to move on. And it's almost that you were forced to, instead of allowing it to naturally let go, forced to move and have this change. So let's see what you did. So we have got the Fox, and we've also got the Nine of Swords in reverse, which is the Spring-Heeled Jack. So we kind of touched on this, the fears and anxieties, and I feel like that was really rife. This almost, I'm hearing married off, and that's because the Fox is a partner. It can be a business partner, can be a kind of a deep relationship with someone. So I feel like maybe that could have been something that happened. Maybe you were married off into a company that you didn't want to be into, maybe in terms of business, or in a career path that you did not want to climb that ladder of, and I feel like you were boxed in. Or it could have been in terms of a marriage, a kind of a forced marriage that you brought into, that brought a lot of fears, anxieties, and disruption, essentially, and this feeling of stifling self, and that inability to be this kind of sensual creature to the world, and kind of and follow what moves you, is what I'm hearing. There's this kind of hard-working, astute individual, but actually the kind of shadow aspects are kind of this agitated being, and really unable to to feel the benefits of what your life was bringing about, I'm hearing. And yeah, with the nine of swords, it is this just almost death to the thoughts, like this insomnia, this never ending cycle where, because you're so unsure of who you are and your identity, because you are constantly being put into all of these different boxes, you never feel like there's any release, and that you never feel that you are yourself. Maybe as a child there was that connection, and like I said, that kind of crossroads, like not really knowing which way to travel, but being forced down a road that you may not have wanted to be on. So let's see what challenges, I mean there was quite a lot of challenges there already, but let's see what challenges we had. So we had Ghost, and we also have Moon, which is the Victorian doppelgangers. So as I was reading up about, so this London Law deck, each card has like a particular law, like a story behind it. And with the Moon card, the Victorian doppelgangers were actually this fear that as you were walking around, you would see your ghost, would see a reflection of your ghost, and that was a bad omen, that death was coming to you, which was so interesting when this ghost card also fell out. But I feel like it's almost like we were saying, unsure of identity, like unsure of who you were, and feeling like you were invisible in this world. Maybe your wills and passions and your desires, there's this almost self-deception here, like not thinking that you are worthy enough or able to speak your mind and be of use, as it were, and just feeling invisible. And like, you know, I'm hearing like almost hopeless with this fears and anxieties, like that death was, you know, like there was nothing really more for you to do whilst you were there. But with the Moon, we also have this deep like psychic development and spirituality, and obviously with Ghost here, maybe there was this mysticism, and maybe because we've obviously got Maiden Mother Crone, you know, Crone, like potentially kind of witch, as it were, and I feel like maybe that is something, maybe spirituality and that kind of deep unconscious awakening was potentially something that saved you in this life, and that connection to that mysticism, maybe that you felt when you were younger, was something, or potentially, you know, that psychic development, which maybe not everyone understood, and following your intuition was the path that you wanted to take, but the one you weren't, you were forced into something else, into a box, like we were saying. But I just get the sense that whatever you wanted to do was kind of in the dark, and you felt like a ghost to it. So let's see how you eventually died. So we have this energy card, and we have this 10 Primrose Hill Burial Mound, which is the 10 of coins, so, or pentacles. So I feel like when you died, I feel like it was a really long life that in this past life that was lived, and because of this 10 and also this energy, and I feel like it was just an expend of energy at the end of the day. It was just that change of consciousness, which death is, and it was just kind of like your energy died, as it were. But energy can't die, we know that, it can only, you know, change. But it was a change of consciousness. And with the 10 of coins, I feel like with the Primrose Hill Burial Mound, it's connecting back to your ancestors, to your ancestral roots, and having the stability in family and legacy. And I feel like it was almost a return to your childhood, wherever you were. So wherever you were laid to rest, I feel like maybe you maybe passed away in your childhood home, and maybe it felt like an energy cycle, like a cyclical kind of 360 on itself. So where you started, you also ended. But there's also this kind of with Primrose Hill Burial Mound, yeah, that there is this stability and legacy that you created, and again this family. And I feel like maybe there were moments where there was fears and anxieties and feeling of alone, but especially when you died in this life, there were people surrounding you, and there was great energy and life, even if you felt like there was little kind of feeling of self in there. I feel like eventually there was that connection that you had. So let's see what lessons were learned. So we have Dolphin, and we also have the High Priestess, submerged forest. So Pepys wrote about, he wrote about many things, Great Fire of London, but wrote about this submerged forest where there were trees underneath the ground and, you know, acorns which had a perfect shell but were decaying inside. And I feel like with the High Priestess, there's this almost unconscious, untapped potential. This kind of, and again, High Priestess is kind of psychic awareness, spiritual awareness. And I feel like maybe there was an unactive principle within this past life that wasn't properly tapped into. So maybe psychic development or spirituality was something that wanted to be explored, but that principle never actually, it was still in that yin, that feminine energy, as it were, and almost suppressed. But the lessons that were learnt, that were actually, this person was such a dolphin, a charismatic spiritual teacher who could affect and change the course of many people's lives, and again was stinted by the environment in which they were, and the boxes or the paths that they were told that they needed to tread. And actually they were such a gift to society and a spiritual healer, and with this High Priestess, very, very powerful. And again, it was all under the surface, all within, all a reflection of above, like all this divine energy just waiting to be tapped into, but people kind of just laying the foundations and putting whatever they wanted to on top, whilst this beautiful garden, as it were, was still there. There's such depth and knowledge. And yeah, and I feel like whoever this person was, the lessons learned was that, you know, even if they did feel like a ghost, even if their fears and anxieties and their fears of having to be on this path and everything pushed them here, yes, they still had a full life and everything, but they realised that there was so much within them that they could have tapped into and kind of accessed, as it were, and they needn't have felt like a ghost. And maybe there were potentially others that they wanted to connect to and didn't in this life, and actually they could heal the ages if they had allowed themselves to. So it's quite bittersweet, this life, in terms of the lessons learned in here, because there was so much potential, and it's really sad, obviously, to see that. So let's see eventually how this has influenced you. So we have the Self, and we also have the Seven of Swords, which is misplacing Cromwell in Red Lion Square. So I feel like with the Self, again, next to this dolphin, there is this vibrancy, there is this colour, there is this artistry here. And I feel like this is what you have learned from this past life, and taking it forward is that you are not afraid of the different paths, of the different boxes. Like, you learn a lot of different things about the different aspects of yourself. You are a beautiful being who has so many different parts, and it is the kind of the stew of life, as it were, but you're the chef of it, and that's how you should see it. Like, are you part of the stew, just like an amalgamation of all these things, or are you actually the cook? Like, you are putting all the ingredients in, all the different things that fuel your soul, and bringing them in towards yourself, and that's what makes up you. And it's okay to be fractured, it's okay to have all these different wills, desires, and things that ping your interest, as it were, because that makes up the individual that is yourself. And you, again, have this untapped, maybe in some aspects, but maybe some of you have tapped into this potential of this almost higher self, like the feeling that there is a kind, almost a spiritual awakening upon you, but there is much more to be needed, but as in to be grasped and attained, is what I mean. And with the Seven of Swords here, with this misplacing Cromwell in Red Lion Square, the story of Cromwell is that he was beheaded, but was on the way to essentially he stayed over, his corpse did, at the Red Lion pub, or inn, sorry, and it was believed that instead of being taken to the burial site, one person watching the body quickly buried the body outside of the Red Lion Inn. So because I feel like whatever I literally just read this story and it's really bad. That let me quickly guess it because I don't want to get it wrong. Yeah, so en route to Cromwell's court, so his body was sent to be beheaded and hung from gallows. En route, Cromwell's corpse spent the night at Red Lion Square. So yeah, instead of being hung and kind of left outside, someone or it was believed someone dug a pit outside the Red Lion Inn, and it was believed that his ghost haunted that square. But there's this kind of maybe falling into the plan, the trap of like being impulsive and having to make decisions and quickly act, as it were, and because of this past life of not taking those paths or being at a stalemate and not being forward, maybe parts of yourself can be quite impulsive, and maybe it feels quite fractured because, like I said, there are a lot of things that spike your interest and you want to go and kind of devour different pieces of knowledge and everything that make up you, but some of it may be unstable plans. Maybe some things are not going to take you to where you actually need to be, and exactly that, maybe they don't fuel your spiritual kind of awareness, like we were saying, but actually kind of follow the ego's plan, as it were. And actually maybe it's about taking time and learning from this past life that it's kind of a balance. I know there's this want to move quickly and devour and kind of get yourself out there and show your vibrancy to the world, but actually there are so many opportunities now that you can pick and paths that you can take, and actually slowing down, and it's kind of meeting this life in the middle, as it were, is what I'm hearing, and taking a moment and not acting so quickly, and trusting that the universe has a plan for you and had a plan for this life, but fears and anxieties and stuff took place. So I feel like this pattern is for you to learn from that and actually tap into your deep spiritual unconscious intuition and inner knowing, and maybe even potentially psychic abilities for some people here watching this video, and trusting that that is a greater plan than your potential ego's plan, and slowing down, and when you reach the crossroads, trusting your intuition, and that will guide you forward. So my glorious friends of pile 7, I'm going to leave that reading there for you guys. I really hope it resonated, especially towards the end, with especially how you've been influenced and what lessons were learned, and you maybe could see kind of how that was woven, as it were, in the past life to then kind of fuel this iteration of you. But I'm sending so much love to all of you guys. I hope, like I said, it resonated. I'd love to hear in the comments. If you'd like to see more of me, please do hit that subscribe button. Until next time, I hope to see you guys there. I'm sending so much love. Bye. Hello, my glorious friends of pile 8. So if you picked the green amethyst star, then this reading is going to be for you. So exploring one of your past lives. So let's have a look. So we have the lover archetype, and we also have the star glass bead necklaces. So I feel like who you were in this past life, this lover here, and I feel like paired with the star, there was this faithfulness and maybe this artistic expression and joy, which maybe sometimes felt quite fleeting, but there was this sense, especially maybe as youth or in terms of your core, of this wanting to marry this mysticism of life and do the dance of life, as it were, and have faith and pour the kind of trust into spirit and the universe that things were going to come to you and joy was going to fill your life. And there is this real potential kind of serenity here, and this artistic expression which wanted to come about, and inherently that's who this person was, someone that wanted and trusted and wanted to have faith that their expression and their creativity was going to be seen potentially by a lot of people and that kind of thing. So let's see what they did. So what they did, we have the mouse, and we also have Temperance, Camden Horse Hospital. So with the mouse, we were kind of saying how big the hopes were, and how this kind of lover energy is a hard one to grasp, is this kind of feeling and love in the universe, and this kind of spiritual awareness, and this feeling of faith that like kind of taking your hand off the wheel and things were going to come to you, and that kind of thing. And I feel like with the mouse, this person almost lost the mysticism of life and maybe their untapped potential and their need to follow love and joy in that way. And with the mouse, I feel like maybe their voice, they felt small in the whole, and kind of got involved in little things that didn't serve their purpose, and they didn't necessarily untap their life's purpose. And with this pearl at the almost throat chakra of this swan, I feel like they almost didn't speak their truth, didn't speak what they wanted to be, and almost dimmed to fit in is what I'm hearing as well. And with the Temperance card, we've got this this kind of prudence, this diligence, and with the horses in Camden Horse Hospital, this was the hospital that was underneath Camden Market sort of thing, near the barges where the horses would be used for labour, as it were, and it's where they were kind of treated. And I feel like this is what this person was put through. They were put through their paces, put through a lot of things, and did the nitty-gritty, but kind of lost sight and actually lived quite a fearful existence instead of finding that joy, and kind of was trying to balance themselves out, was trying to enjoy the alchemy of life, but actually was kind of being forced into a labour, into the rat race is what I'm hearing, and losing that connectivity to faith and that kind of star, who inherently who they were. Because again, that those stars are still in that mouse card shining, but it's that kind of not focusing on the their intention on that. So let's see what challenges were faced. I know we've already probably had quite a lot of that. So we had creativity, and we also have Moon, Victorian doppelgangers. So we've got we've got major cards here in terms of this past life. So I feel like there was a lot of lessons to learn from here. And with the creativity and the Moon, I feel like there was this almost illusion of life, like we were saying, with this almost lens of fear in that mouse, kind of going around quite small-mindedly. And I feel like there was this lover bursting, this creativity bursting at the seams, like wanting to come out, wanting to share their truth. And it's this kind of self-deception, and maybe this fear, this lens of fear, replaced the lens of love that maybe was felt earlier, and that love for the world was not expressed fully. And with the creativity, again, it was just bursting through the darkness of the Moon. And the Victorian doppelgangers, it's really in this London Law tarot book, I was reading it, and in Victorian London, they believed if they saw their doppelganger or their double, that it was an omen for death, and that death was coming about, and there would be fear. And again, it's that fear and deception, but also this could be psychic and spiritual awareness, again, which this swan can be a symbol for. And we've obviously got this creativity. So I feel like there was so much light, and especially with the star card, this kind of guidance, like their internal beam to the world was so bright at some point, or was trying to come towards the surface, but the mouse was being distracted by things that didn't serve the purpose, doing little things, nitty-gritty things, and not necessarily seeing the whole picture, seeing the alchemy of life, and getting too caught up in the smallness of it all. And yeah, with the Moon, I feel like there was quite a lot of darkness, and this trying to burst through. And the challenge was ignoring so much of this, ignoring that feeling bubbling up inside of you. But you know, the situation, whatever kind of era, maybe this or century or year or whatever this past life was in, maybe this psychic spirituality was something that wasn't able to be untapped, or this creativity, depending on their position and that kind of thing. So let's see as well how this person died. So we have Stop card, and we also have Crossbones Graveyard, which is the 5 of Coins, 5 of Pentacles. So with this Stop, I feel like it's quite clear that this is probably quite an abrupt ending to life, and probably very much out of the blue. So a situation most likely happened, and with the cross which just stinted and cut off. And with the Crossbones graveyard, this is a site around the back of Borough Market in London, where graves of the outcast dead, so a lot of sex workers were buried there, but people who maybe went against the grain were buried, and now have been given kind of burial rights. And there's beautiful ribbons and notes and messages for all of these kind of outcast dead, as it were. So I feel like, and with the Five of Coins, this is kind of physical need and need for material wealth, as it were. And I feel like maybe the nitty-grittiness of doing things and not fully expressing who they were, like it came to a point where that kind of overwhelmed, and there was a feeling of a door shut, or maybe work stopped or something, and then weren't able to properly like look after themselves and that kind of thing. So it feels like there was a lot of financial trouble and a lot of a lot of pain, especially at the end, which almost came about of nowhere, because there was again this fear going around. So let's see what lessons were learned. So we have the Tarantula, and we also have William Blake, which is the Page of Cups. So I feel like the Tarantula is this person at a crossroads, and the lessons learned here is to follow your intuition, follow the creativity, follow the intuitive spark, even in the darkness, even if fear it is coming. Like, focus in on the lens of love and find that star, find that guidance within yourself, and pull that kind of intuition and that love in. And William Blake, I mean, was seen as everyone around him as a kind of lunatic, like speaking absolute ridiculousness, and was almost shunned, but actually is such a messenger ahead of their time. And obviously William Blake, Songs of Innocence and Experience and everything, you know, is such a teacher. Like the Tarantula is a messenger, and speaks out of a place of love, and almost called things, and spoke with the creativity in a dark situation, called things out, was the poet of the time, who went to darkness and depths that people weren't afraid, like were afraid to go to, and almost brought light to them like this. And again, like a prophet for our ages. And with the Tarantula, there is that intuitive knowing, and William Blake trusting intuition, and not necessarily like going against the grain, and not necessarily taking heed of what other people were saying at the time. So so the lesson of life was actually to follow the intuition, follow that spark, that creativity, and that would have guided Out of the Moon. Because this person, again, like William Blake, was this kind of light, was this intuitive being that could bring around so much change, and had a lasting legacy, and again had so much to speak about, like that pearl at the throat chakra. William Blake, you know, poet, you know, writing words which would have so much effect, even today, would ripple through the centuries. And so there is this kind of need to listen to your guides, and especially the guides in the star, and not getting involved in things that take you away from that, and try and bring yourself back to balance. So, and follow that fire. So let's see how this has ultimately influenced you, this past life. So we have the Eternal Child, and we also have the Two of Cups, Thames Nymphs. So with the Eternal Child, I feel like there is this almost kind of William Blake aspect to you as well. And like the Lover, kind of finding joy and curiosity of a child in life, and there is this joy and magnetism and people coming to you and wanting to listen to your word, as it were, and listen to what you have to say, because with this Two of Cups there is a deep marrying and a deep concord almost within yourself of who you need to be potentially, but there's this just following emotions and following that path, and marrying what you love at every single stage. And you know, as a child you would not do something that you didn't want to, like you would kick up a fuss, scream, and I feel like that's almost it, like that kind of wanting to dive into the depths potentially of the unconscious. Again, with the water, I feel like that is a big thing here, especially with the nymphs as well. Kind of this untapped potential potentially, and untapped potential potentially. What a little tongue twister. But yeah, I feel like with the eternal child, like there is so much such a gift that you have to the world to give, this creativity, this spark, and in this lifetime what you have learned from your past is not to stint that, not to get involved and kind of lack focus and go after small things. Kind of don't get involved in the small fry. Remember who you are and remember what you are connected to and what you love, and kind of bridge that, bring that about, and trust that even if your word isn't appreciated now, but I feel like it will be with this eternal child, it can sometimes signify someone who's almost famous, like people want to be around and listen to their word, because there is such a deep connection to something almost beyond that love. It is lover. It is a lover, and someone who is like speaks their truth and completely drawn together. So yeah, I feel like that is ultimately what has been learned here, from this past life. So I hope that resonates in some way with you, pile 8, that kind of need to be the eternal child and marry that, and trust that, and trust that no one can kind of accept the magic in your life. And there's so many infinite possibilities, and there were so many infinite possibilities for this person in the past life, but rules and maybe their own physical limitations of what they thought they could be stood in their way, whereas now hopefully you kind of allow yourself to be expressive and free and marry what you love. So my glorious friends, I'm going to leave that reading there for you guys. I really hope it resonated, especially, like I said, the kind of lessons at the end and how you've been influenced, and maybe you can see kind of the pattern that was woven, as it were, to how this has come about. So my glorious friends, I'm going to leave that reading there for you. I'm sending so much love to you guys. If you'd like to see me again, please do hit that subscribe button. I'd love to see you guys all there at the next reading. I'm sending so much love. Bye.